So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a journey been on with the Audi S4 I bought. So I've had a Boxster S for 13 years, I think, something like that. Modifying it, driving it, loved it to bits, loved it to bits. Age has become a thing, getting in and out of the car, old injury, etc. So needed an automatic, looked at a couple of cars, narrowed it down to 3 really. So Legacy Turbo, the Audi S4 and the BMW estates, I should add, needing an estate for the dog. Loved the Legacy, had one many years ago, Series 1 Turbo, 300 horsepower, brilliant, looked like a hearse, but there you go, surprised a few people. BMW, yeah, probably the best car out of the 3 if I'm honest. Lacked a little bit of something, plus the Audi had a supercharger. I've never had a supercharger, or a car with a supercharger rather, so went for that 2 months ago. Bought that in July, end of July 2024. Mainly again, someone with supercharger. Loved the sound of the Hellcat at Goodwood. Bought the car, brilliant. Few issues, brakes are shit, suspension shit. Easy sorted. However, the supercharger didn't quite have the Hellcat whine that I wanted out of it. So, as one of my mates said, it sounds more like a kitten with laryngitis. Over a few beers, we sat and thought, right, okay, we can change that. Should mention that my mate's all into cars, so one owns a business restoring and building Escort Group 4 classic rally cars, the other one rebuilding historic cars, nothing before 1965. I'm into cars, always have been, last 45 years, modifying, had my own garage modifying cars till life took a turn, racing as well, rallying. So we kind of sat there one night. Our other hobby is hi-fi, building subs, speakers, all of those kind of things, and thought, I wonder whether we can make it sound a little bit better. So we did a little bit of kind of internet searching, a couple of the big names that I won't mention, fear of being sued probably. So managed to borrow one of those from another friend and bought one. We did send it back, to be fair, after we'd put it on the rolling road and a few other bits and pieces with it, and did a few tests with it, as I say, and kind of started to build our own. All of us are the same kind of age, from late 50s through to 60s myself, and we come from an era where as young kids we'd go out, we'd go to the scrapyard, we'd get a few bits and we make our car go faster. Doesn't cost much. I can remember getting a turbocharger off in a JCB, sticking it on a Rover SD1. Went well for a while. So we kind of got talking, as you do over a few beers, the fact that everything now costs so much money. The couple of the inlet air takes that we were looking at, again, I paid 7.5k for the car, and nearly 10% for air intake seemed a little bit steep. So we set about having a look, see if we could increase the sound as much as we could. Ideally to Hellcat standard, but the reality is they're different superchargers. One's Eaton Roots, the S4, I think the other's the Hellcat's a Whipple, both twin screw. So as I say, we started looking at all of the aspects and what was going on with the rolling road. We chucked some bits and pieces together that we had from our kind of spares lying around in sheds and garages, etc. Threw one together, which is I think it's made of 3 different parts. This is 3-inch. Drove it round for a while, put it on the rolling road, compared it to the other, apologies for the Porsche decor, it's probably changing to Audi. So we put it on the rolling road and found we got 3 horsepower just out of that joined together bodge job. The other ones, I know they're kind of saying you can get 10 horsepower, etc. We didn't find that. Again, I'm not going to mention what they are. Two big names. The more expensive ones, that might narrow it down. They were putting out 4 horsepower over standard, we switched the standard airbox and put a solid tube and cone filter on, and found we got 3 horsepower out of that. So what we determined is there is not much gain from messing around with the intake on the supercharged engine. Yeah, maybe you get 10 to 15, which is what they're advertising, but that's going to be on a stage 2 plus engine. Otherwise you're looking at a couple of horsepower, that's it. So unless you've kind of got those engines, your best bet, and I'll come back to that, is probably on the standard airbox. So we started looking at tube size. So 3.5 inch is the standard for kind of the big boy modifications, but we thought we'd go a little bit bigger than that, so we went to 4 inch. We tried different intake tubes, materials, so we used plastic, we tried steel, aluminium and copper. We looked at the elbows, so putting on a pretty much a completely standard aluminium 45-degree elbow and then tube. Again, we're trying to make these things cheap so somebody can just make it from this vid or whatever. Keeping the price down. Not everybody's got access to a TIG welder. Also the fact that it's very close and you have to put a very small bit of silicone there means that you're not soaking up a lot of the vibration, so we weren't sure how long that would last before the silicone maybe got cracked or whatever. So we looked at the length of the tube, we also looked at the thickness of the tube, we looked at different air filters, albeit not many to be fair, well 2. So we tried both the K&N, which I think is down there, I don't know if you can see that bit, and the Program, which is a British company. One is a wet oiled filter, the other one's a dry filter. Didn't notice much difference with the filters that we put on. The dry filter filters slightly better, which means it doesn't let quite as much air through. The only difference you're going to notice is the oiled filter, the K&N one we used. You can hear the whine 250 revs maybe earlier. In terms of decibels, it's hardly noticeable on the decimeter that we used. Again, silicone elbows were the way we decided to go. We decided to go for a big silicone elbow. We tried a couple of those. Be warned, if you're going to make one, some are absolute rubbish and they squeeze up. So we went for a more expensive, I'm not mentioning any brands that we use, you can do it yourself. All I would say is they're 30 quid a pop. And we just kind of played around really, we had a little bit of fun. So we went back to the rolling road a couple of times, got a friend that's got a rolling road, put them on, see what that is. One of the big things out there that people seem on the forums to go on about is the heat in the engine bay. So lots and lots of arguments, fun reading a lot of them. I don't know if they've got engineering degrees or what, I would guess not, keyboard warriors. Heat makes a difference. Well, it kind of does. Heat makes no difference. Well, it kind of does, or doesn't rather. So keeping it kind of simple, you don't have a proportionate amount of heat increase on the exit that you do on the intake. So 10 degrees hotter on intake temperatures does not relate to 10 degrees after the supercharger. So yes, heat is obviously not the best thing. The more you improve your car, I think it's one of Newton's laws, the engine's going to get hotter. That's the way it is, and if it's getting hotter and your filter's in the engine bay, it's going to suck that in. To refer back to the Boxster actually, so Boxster engine, mid-mounted, the air intake is pretty much in the middle of the engine, and the intake runs across the top of the engine, actually sits right on top of the oil cooler for that. So Porsche kind of know a thing is, and Audi do, about building cars. It doesn't make that much of a difference. It will make a little bit of a difference, but not a lot of difference. If you can cool it, then it's going to help with hot air, or rather cold air, is denser. So the colder the air, the better it is, whether you're injecting CO2, which used to be a thing, or not. So that could be a way to go if you want to cool the intake temps. So we started to kind of, as I say, we looked at it. We made a prototype which we were happy with on the rolling road. That's that little boy. That's now done 500 miles on the car, probably 100 miles on the rolling road, to be fair. So that's that one. That's with the Pro Ram. We're going to that's up for sale actually. If anyone wants to buy that, I should probably put it on eBay. So the other thing that we kind of noticed was that these kits that you get from the big brands have a heat block firewall, whatever you want to call it, which goes across, and the filter goes the other side to allegedly stop the engine heating that up. So this is the bit where it got a little bit interesting. So again, that's one of their things, you need to put this on, it will stop the heat going and you're sucking in cool air. Fair enough, yeah, you've got the fog light, just by the fog light there's an air entry there. However, we managed to talk another friend who's into meteorology, I don't know if there's a term, weather measuring. He's given up on life, to be fair. He's got Volvo and everything. So he was partly surprised that we said we were now interested in the weather, and we'd like to get an airspeed meter and air temperature, etc. He has some good kit. So we promised him faithfully that we'd made sure cats and dogs didn't get at it. We thought the best way really was to stick it in the engine bay, which is what we did. So we started measuring engine temps, engine bay temps, intake temps, wind speed, etc. And what we found from these panels was, yes, it does keep the engine temperature down if you're stationary, and up to about 30 miles an hour. However, you get kind of heat soak coming through if you're there longer than that, so it takes a little bit longer to clear. So actually not having it there means that kind of the cool air gets there. However, that wasn't really the main thing that surprised us. What also surprised us, which when you think about it is quite logical, so the engine cooling, you get air into the engine bay to cool the car through a couple of ways. Firstly, obviously through the grille, goes through the radiator, pushing hot air further into the engine. But then either side you've got two very big, or comparatively big, air intakes where the fog lights are mounted. So these allow cold air to go to the engine bay. And when you look at the standard airbox, which obviously Audi has spent millions developing, so the air comes through, it cools the side of the airbox, and then it comes past the airbox to cool the engine. In fact, it speeds up because it's a narrower passage. So when you put a block there, you trap that cool air from actually coming in and cooling the engine. So firstly then, you are heating up an already hot engine if you've modified it. We've now got a Jackal Stage 1 actually, I should mention, which is what we've done these tests on. Your engine heat is increased because your power is increased. It's proportional, but you're blocking off the cooling effect to the right bank of cylinders because you've got a block there. So potentially you're causing more damage than you'd like. The other thing we found with the airspeed meter is as the air comes in, so up to about 50 miles an hour, actually it's a bit more than that, I think it was 60 miles an hour, you're fine. Once you get over that speed, what's happening is the air is hitting that panel and it's bouncing back, and we used to call it, we were kind of carb standoff. So you're getting standoff from that. So the air is coming back with the new air that's coming in, and it's actually pushing it away from the air intake. If you've got a wide open throttle, you're fine. So if you're drag racing your car, yeah, it's going to keep it cooler. You're going down the strip, you've got your throttle wide open, and you're sucking the air in. If you're stuck at 70 miles an hour on the motorway, then you are getting a pushback from that because the air's got nowhere to go. So it's stopping the air going into the filter, so you are not getting 70 mile an hour air going into that intake. So that could cause hesitation. It could make it a little bit weaker, so the engine's going to change the fueling and the mixture. We don't have the equipment to actually test that. And should say all of these tests that you see, you know, does this on the rolling road, it does that on the rolling road. Well, that's fine, but cars don't stand still. As Mercedes Formula 1 has found out, what works on the rolling road or on the computer doesn't necessarily work out to the track. So we decided we didn't want to put that in. So we kind of looked at, okay, what's going on there? So we kind of thought part of it probably is something just to support the intake with that. So we put together a very, very simple intake which will allow the air to come in. I can show you that, screws in. There we go. So there's your intake, and it sits there. It's not going to stop all of the hot air in the engine bay, but it seems like a reasonable. You're getting all of that cool air that's coming through the fog light is now getting to the filter. To prove a point as well, if you look at the intake on the original airbox, it is not massive. Okay, it's a narrow strip, as most of you will know, kind of letterbox, not even a letterbox size. The reason being, you do not want to force all that air into the airbox, because it's going to start pushing back and forcing the air back out. So, and again, original airbox cools the airbox. It is the best option, so ignore all of this. If you just want sort of a little bit more power, solid pipe, get rid of the resonator, get rid of the plastic pipe, put an aluminium one in because that dissipates heat better, and that's the best option. So this is what we kind of came up with that design. As I say, we went slightly thicker, so this is can't hear it, this is a slightly thinner aluminium tube than the tube we ended up with. To give you a kind of idea of size, bear in mind that's wrapped. That is 3-inch, and that is what we decided to call the Goliath, which is the 4-inch one. So, as I say, we just kind of did this for a little bit of fun, really, trying to make things cheap. It hasn't worked out that cheap. I think it come to about 130 quid for the bits, but we're using quality filters, quality silicone, turbo clamps to the inlet manifold. The other thing to address is, the other thing I've seen on forums, is restrictions. You don't really have restrictions or that too much on a turbo or supercharged engine. You just don't. It's on a normally aspirated engine, it's a little bit more important. Again, if you look at one of those big brands, which I'm not going to mention for fear of being sued, they're an S shape. Now that is the last thing you want, because you get high pressure and low pressure points. So that's the way the car flows over the bonnet, which is why you have the air intake for your heater right at the back, because you get low pressure, high pressure and low pressure. So if that was the case, that is the last thing you want, is an S on there. You want it as straight as you can. So as I say, we did a couple of other bits and pieces actually. We tried a very short one, that worked quite well. Obviously it's sitting right over the engine, the manifold, so you get the heat there, so didn't go with that. We tried something that we called the Hedgehog, which was putting welding on little pipes with kind of oil breather filters rather, on the end. Didn't really make much of a difference. The idea being we could get swirl in there, so sort of rifled effect. But for the work involved, again, not everybody has access to a TIG welder, so we kind of binned that, and then we did the double dome. We're not misogynists, obviously, where we put two on. This hasn't got the domes on in the middle of spraying the covers. So the idea being with this one, don't know whether you can see the angles on it, so it sits like that, I think, roughly. So you have, that is where the fog light comes in, the air intake around the fog light. So you've got cold air coming in, that is directed to the one, the standard one normally goes to the airbox. So the dome filter runs sponge, they're sponge filters, so these are the least good at filtration to mention. So you've kind of got three stages. You've got your foam filter, then your K&M, which is the one that I prefer, and then your dry filter. So that is the only kind of downside. However, we have a theory. Now, I should say we've done lots of miles with those. We haven't done lots of miles with this. It's probably going to make another one, and it will go on the car to check it out, and it'll go on the rolling road. Theory being that it should actually not pull as much air because you've got two filters, so the filtration thing doesn't really matter that much. The angles, before somebody writes in the comments, don't make much, it's sucking. If it was pushing, yeah, you've got a block there. It's not, it's sucking in. There are, I don't know whether you can see, there's eddy ridges there to spin the air up, and as I say, restrictions don't make that much of a difference with it. So quite interested to see how that's going to work. My friends, I shouldn't add, my two mates aren't so keen in that. It's far too modern for them. Anything over 1975 seems to be too modern for them, to be fair. So we're drawn back really to the charge cooler, the air intake side of it. So ideally we want to keep the engine bay cooler, not just for intake pressures but for the well-being of the engine. It surprised me a little bit that the charge coolers aren't divorced. So cars have had, as I say, the Subarus and the Legacy and the Imprezas, their charge cooler sits on top of the engine, divorced. GT4 exactly the same, so a bit surprised on that, but it's got a big charge cooler. So to be kind of clear here, what I would say is that the best thing you can do is to change your charge cooler, but it's money. They're what, 800 quid, something like that. So we're going to have a look and see how we can get that engine temperature down. We've looked at a couple of ideas. In the good old days when we were racing, we'd raise the rear of the bonnet, let the air out. Unfortunately, back to kind of airflow and high and low pressures, modern cars are really well designed aerodynamically. So raising the bonnet, you're in a low pressure area, it's not necessarily going to do anything. It might help it a little bit, plus they don't look particularly brilliant. So where we are at the moment is we're going to have a play around with bonnet vents. You go to any event, stage rallies, etc. I mean, that's my thing, and you'll see the cars on there. Pretty much the way they get around all the cooling issues, bonnet vents. That said, don't really want my car to look like it's driven through the front window of Halfords. So we're kind of having a look in a few measurements. We need to have a look and see where the airflow is, measure that, see where we can actually put them. Bonnets are reinforced as well. We don't want a fiberglass bonnet, so you can't go where the reinforcements are. So it may not be possible, but again, and if you look again, Subaru and GT4 are my reference points, then they both use bonnet vents to cool the charge cooler, which makes sense. You could possibly divorce the standard charge cooler. Again, that might be beyond your average person to do that. It's not difficult, but maybe people don't want to do that. So we've had loads of fun doing it. Unfortunately, my friend, when we were ordering bits and pieces, pushed the wrong button and we bought too many silicone elbows. So we will be selling two of these or 3 of these. We're not going to make any more, we're not in it for money, just make a couple of quid, which won't even go towards the rolling road because we had to pay another friend in beers, and I think he's got an alcohol problem. So yeah, that's it really. So we're going to keep you posted again. Everything we're doing is trying to do things really, really cheaply. We know that these work, so you don't need to go out and spend 600 quid when I think these come to about 130 for bits, something like that. You can probably shop around, maybe you can get it cheaper, I don't know. Or I should say we sprayed them, so if anyone's interested in the ones we've got, so they're sprayed in, use that one, they're all the same. So it's etch primed onto thick, I can't remember the SWG, what the thickness the aluminium is, but again, anyone messages me if they want to make them, I'll let you know. And the reason we went thicker is the heat dispersion on it. So they're etch primed, they're then sprayed in gloss black, and then Nebula Pearl, purple pearl. So I think when I mixed, I went a little bit heavy on the purple pearl. So they should look black with a hint of pearl. I don't know if that's making any difference whatsoever, but they more look purple with a hint of black. We went that colour because it was the rally car colours, but yeah, if purple's not your thing, you can paint it. On the intakes as well, we used a Ali billet takeoff for the vacuum. We noticed on some of them that they stick them further round, so you've got to actually extend the pipe. These are just bolt on, nice and simple. Also means if anyone is interested in these and you don't like the colour of the silicone, maybe you prefer the red or blue, or they do different colours, they unscrew and 8mm drill bit, and you can do them again turbo clamps rather than cheap rubbishy ones. If you're going to make them, don't go cheap on the clamps. With that, I will post some pictures as well to kind of show what these look like in the engine bay, and if we get this bad boy on as well, some pictures of that, and if I get round to it, we'll do some in-car so you can hear the whine. Have we increased the whine? Yes, we have. It's enough to make people turn around, which is probably as good as we're going to get. As I say, we don't think we're going to get any more with anything bigger. So going from 3 to 4 gives it a bit of a megaphone effect, but you're kind of limited with what you've got, really. So we'll kind of let you know. As I say, we're just having a bit of fun. We got 150 years, I think, or something like that, of experience of building race engines and race cars, but for all of us this is a new foray into supercharging. We could port the supercharger, do all those kind of things, whip it off and do that, but at the moment we're just having a little bit of fun to kind of see if we can make something cheap that people can enjoy. The cars are at a level of value now where people with money aren't necessarily buying an old Audi S4, but the people that are buying them because they like the cars, and maybe want to tune them and maybe want to do that quite cheaply. In terms of the tune, as I say, went for the Jackal. Not going to make any kind of comments because I know there's loads of people, you should have this, you should have that, blah blah blah. Stage 1 at the moment, not sure whether we're going to change the pulleys or not. If we do, I'll let you know what difference that makes to the sound of the whine. And the same with the bonnet vents. The idea then is that we're letting the heat out of the engine, which is going to help the power, it's going to help the engine live a little bit longer, and also if it's vented we hope to get a little bit more whine out. So yeah, so that's it. So if you've got any kind of questions or you want to make them, we'll tell you all the bits and measurements, what we cut, how we cut it, etc. Up to you where you source those bits from. Then yeah, let us know. Cheers.